Hello and welcome. We've got a great webinar lined up for you today. How AssistEdge bots played a key role in process transformation at Infosys, a case study. You are, I'm sure, well aware of not only Infosys, but EdgeVerve. And this really, truly is a case study. And that's what we're always asked for. And so we're very pleased to be able to provide it to you today. I'm Seth Adler, your editor and host. Speaking today, we've got great executives, Niranjan from Infosys and Prashant from EdgeVerve. Prashant's going to drive, at least initially. I'll hand it over to you, sir. Here we go.
Thanks, Seth. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everybody, wherever you are joining from. Thank you once again for joining us. And we hope we can make good use of your time today. So very quickly, what we'll cover today, I'll give you a very quick overview of the background of RPA and where we are in the life cycle of RPA right now, very quickly. We'll spend maximum time on the case study. Like Seth just said, it's a case study of how at Infosys itself we are using for process transformation. And then maybe in the end, we'll just touch upon what AssistEdge RPA is and what AssistEdge as a platform is, and then we'll take your questions towards the end. So, over the last several years, as RPA has become, it has found success in several key process areas, and generally these have been areas where it's very easy to identify that this is something that involves a lot of manual effort. All these are areas where it's very easy to say that, okay, here is where we can get into rule-based automation, right? For example, invoice entry, some types of reconciliations, onboarding of vendors, some activities related to reporting and so on. And generally, good benefits have also been seen. And these are all things that we've all seen in the industry, in our practices, in our lives. Processing times have become faster, accuracy has improved. For example, productivity metrics have gone up, overall cost has gone down, and so on, right? But having said that, other than these, what we can now call traditional areas, there are still large areas of enterprises which are still untapped, and only now, in recent times, people are now starting to look at these areas for automation, right? So if we look at the entire value chain of an organization, start looking at each of the departments, human resources, be it sales and fulfillment, customer service, procurement. In each of these departments, we can find that there are several areas where RPA or automation is sparingly used right now, but there is scope for adding much more. For example, whether it is recruitment or managing the time and attendance, right? Especially for organizations that have large employee base. And there is a lot of record keeping and manipulation to be done over there, manipulation of data or employee master data. How do you do that in a way that is efficient as well as it protects the privacy of the employees? Training administration, or whether if you look at customer onboarding, sales related processes, or after sales, or even sometimes pre-sales processes, right? Customer service is an area which often comes up. Procurement, how do we improve the management of the supplier relationship? How do we look at settlement? How do we look at areas related to contract management and so on? And of course, one thing that is increasingly gaining prominence is on the whole IT operations side, right? Whether it is pushing software to be installed on user desktops and laptops and other devices, whether it is application and server monitoring, whether it is help desk, access management, and so on. And in each of these departments and areas, really, they are able to see benefits that, over and above those traditional metrics we spoke of, which are related to productivity, cost, and accuracy, and so on. These are all metrics that, as you can see, are related to the actual business of that department, right? If these are related to improving the lives of the people that are impacted, all stakeholders, whether it's employees, customers, whoever they are. So in human resources, for example, helping the entire recruitment cycle become much faster than it would be if all the processes were done manually, right? Or for example, the employee data management that I spoke of, accuracy while maintaining the privacy of the individual. In customer service, for example, the most important thing that automation can help achieve is improve and uplift this customer satisfaction, and of course reduce the training costs of the agents who are going to pick it up. And if you reduce the training cost and training time, their productivity and their time to productivity becomes much faster. In procurement, for example, if you pick up areas related to the experience of the suppliers, it goes a long way in enhancing the relationships with the vendors, while at the same time balancing, the reduction in supply side risk. So there are many such areas that are now beginning to gain prominence. And it's in these kind of areas that now at Infosys also, Infosys is looking at how can we now look at automation. We've done the classic AP, finance, PR to PO, all of those cases. Now, how do we look at areas where we free up people's time to do what they are best at and to do where they're really adding value to the clients, right? And that is project management and delivery. And how do we free up their time from doing other things that are not adding value to the client, right? So it's one such case study. And therefore, I have my friend and colleague Niranjan here to talk us through what were the challenges they faced, how they went through it, and what are the benefits and so on. Niranjan, over to you.
Hey, thanks Prashant, and thanks everybody for joining us in this webinar. Let me quickly take a minute to set the context. Like Prashant said, right? Our core competence is to deliver projects to customer, and every year we deliver more than thousands of projects we work on, right? And more and more with the advent of digitalization, the projects are also becoming pretty complex. So we need our project managers to really focus on client deliverables and make sure that whatever we deliver to clients is flawless. So to that extent, while project managers are working with clients, they also need to support certain internal processes, which, like Prashant said, are the non-core part of their work. And we said, how do we actually cut down a large part of that, either eliminate or optimize, or if not, automate, right? And when we did the analysis of several such processes, there are HR processes, there are quality management processes, there are processes, and so on and so forth. And one such process we picked up for optimization was the month-end, we call it the activity confirmation and the billing process. Essentially, wherein the project managers list down all the list of activities that they have been working on. How do you put your time against those activities, and then raise invoices to the customers. Now, this has been a pretty tedious, I would say, manual process. While we have fantastic systems in Infosys, the invoice generation itself was a lot of manual activity, because you have to enter a lot of data into the systems and make sure every month it is accurate and the invoices are generated. And you look at it, there are different kind of engagement models that we work with customers, whether it is time and material, which is a standard where you have so many hours spent into rate, versus the fixed price or even the unit of work, right? So several different engagement models that we work with customers. Now, project managers obviously are working across these different kind of engagements. They're collecting all of that data in Excel sheets, right? And then they were entering it into the systems and then raising the invoices. So this was how the whole process was running, right? And now, obviously, this also led to quite a bit of errors in the process and rework, causing delays in raising invoices to customers and so on and so forth. Obviously, because manual work will always be ridden with certain errors, right? So what we did is we undertook a corporate initiative to simplify this whole process. And in that process, we actually looked at automating this whole process using the assist edge bots. So that's where we thought, the RPA will be extremely helpful, and we turned to Prashant and team for help, and we engaged the assist edge team, and we started looking at how do we automate this whole process using the assist edge bots. Before we go into the solution, just in terms of the impact on the organization, we have close to 20,000 project managers at Infosys managing different client projects. Right now, if you look at it, every one of them was handling about 2 to 3 confirmations every month, I would say, in terms of invoices, and spending about half an hour, 45 minutes per activity confirmation. And so you can estimate it's a huge number of hours that were being spent by the project managers. Simplifying that and diverting it back into the client is a big impact on client satisfaction. Can we go to the next slide, please, Prashant? Yeah. So what we did is we developed these bots using AssistEdge to automate the whole process of collection of the data itself and then entering the data into the systems. So essentially, whatever data the project managers were collecting manually, a lot of that is available in the systems. So now these bots will actually go pull that data, put it into a template, a spreadsheet template. Post that, it will be shipped out to the project manager. The project manager, all they need to do is go review the data, validate for any errors that might be there, very rare, and make any manual corrections, but send it back to the bot. And then there's another bot that will pick it up, take this data and feed it into the invoice system and raise the invoice. So essentially, end-to-end, the work for the project managers has reduced quite a bit on this business process. The whole process is now managed end-to-end by the bots, right, with intervention of reviews, because obviously reviews, you need to have a maker-checker model. The project manager will review the data, and then once the bots have raised the invoice, they'll review the invoice and then ship it out to the customers, right? So that's how the whole process works now. It has really cut down the amount of time it takes for the project managers. It has improved the accuracy in a big way, right, and reduced the errors that were happening. Now, this overall, if you look at it from an effort reduction perspective in billing, close to 40 to 70% of the time being spent has been reduced because now it is all automated. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Yeah. So now the big challenge, obviously, if it is a small organization, you get done with a small set of projects or a unit, then it is not such a big exercise. But for Infosys, it was a huge change management exercise. As I said, we had 20,000 project managers, right? And it is still in progress, I would say. We have covered about 50% of the population now. Close to 20,000 project managers are now actually using these bots, right? The work of 20,000 project managers, we are actually saving the time required to prepare these invoices and ship it out to the customer and so on and so forth. Right, so that's a huge jump, right? And look at it, as I said, 25 to 45 minutes per PM. Literally, we had to talk to every business unit, do some pilots, and then get it rolling and actually scaling it up, right? I think the big piece there was EdgeVerve as a team and the AssistEdge as a tool. The scale we have achieved. Every quarter now, in the last quarter, we actually did 50,000 activity confirmations, right? And every month we are doing close to 25,000 confirmations now. We have actually scaled up to around 25,000 now. More than $1 billion of billing per quarter was achieved, right? So essentially, net, and the accuracy has improved. So net, it's been a huge business value add, I would say, right, for delivery for the business units, been a huge value add. The people now, the project managers can actually focus their energies on delivering more stuff to the client, focus on their own learning journeys, focus on innovation conversations with the customers, right? So this has been a big win from the business stakeholders' perspective, from a delivery perspective as well. So that's in essence what we have done in terms of the case study. next slide, please. There are certain testimonials that we thought we should share. These are some of the project managers that we've been working with. Some banking customers, some retail customers, the insurance, telcos. Across the board, across verticals, we have actually deployed this across the different business units and segments, and it's been a huge success. We call it the Confirmation and Billing Bot program, the CABOT program that we've been running for almost now. It's about 4 to 5 months we've been in this journey now. So that's a summary of the case study. Over to you, Prashant.
Thanks, Niranjan. So one thing, one thing I always like to joke with my friends is that the mark of a good cook is if they are eating the food cooked in their own kitchen, right? And thanks to you, that is exactly what we are proving to the world. That as EdgeVerve and Infosys together, we are able to show success even within Infosys internally at such a large scale. Before we move to set for the question, etc., I wanted to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about AssistEdge. Like you can see here, it's an end-to-end platform. What we have consciously done is gone far beyond just an automation tool, an RPA tool, and looked at what are all the areas in which and how can we make it a very comprehensive end-to-end platform, right? So starting all the way from even before we get into automation, how do we get into identifying what are the processes and what are the areas to automate? Where can we bring in maximum transformation and automation? And that is where we've we have AssistEdge Discover, and we are actually the pioneers in this field of process discovery a few years back. So this is an AI ML based capability for identifying what are all the bottlenecks, what are all the opportunities that are available, where are people getting stuck, how many different variants are there which are varying from the SOP. Where are the automation opportunities? Where are you likely to see the most benefit, and so on? It generates a lot of insights, and which can then directly get into the AssistEdge RPA. So once you're done with the discovery and you've defined the process that you want to follow, you can go directly into AssistEdge RPA, which is the next kind of box that you see there, which is the deterministic rule-based RPA that we all know and understand very well, unattended automation. What we have also done is we have gone a little further into attended automation as well. We have a platform called AssistEdge Engage, and the idea of AssistEdge Engage is helping people who deal with multiple systems simultaneously. How do we help them bring all of their information and tasks in a single screen, so that the person is just doing what they do best, which is either they are addressing a sales query or a customer support query or a vendor query or whatever it is that they're doing, while the system is taking care of orchestrating all of the pulling of information, pushing of information in an automated way, and so on, right? And then we've taken this further into our own cognitive automation platform, where as the RPA keeps working, it keeps learning also what it is doing. We've made between this and the next box, what we've done is we've brought together a platform where the bots and humans can coexist simultaneously. So RPA, for example, if I take an example, the RPA does something, it runs it into an issue, it flags it for the person. The person comes and takes a look at it, decides that it has to be one way or the other, makes the change, and then from that point on, seamlessly the bot carries on with the next process, right? And as this keeps happening, the machine learning engine keeps learning, so that over time, the same question doesn't come up again, and the entire automation becomes more and more intelligent and capable of executing on its own, right? And really, it's only the exceptions that the person is dealing with, and even those keep happening fewer and fewer. Now, while this is like a utopia that we've often heard of, but this is something that we're actually doing. And we've kind of, if we look at the spread of assistance, right? So whether it is the scale at which assistance operates, there are 10,000 plus processes automated, working across 140 countries. In terms of 50 million and plus transactions processed every month, 40 plus patent assets in automation and in AI. The other thing is that, being part of Infosys, obviously we work with enterprise class customers, and that's our platform is built in such a way that it enables operating at that scale. And a little later, I'll give some examples of some of the clients where we are working with this kind of scale. So 350 plus customers, all in the global 2000 enterprises. So scale and scalability is kind of assured and built in into the platform. And wherever you choose to get your analyst ratings from, whether it's Forrester, Nelson Hall, IDC, what have you, consistently this platform has been rated at the forefront. There are a few things that are always called out, whether it is about the end-to-end nature of the platform that I mentioned, the scale and scalability, the kind of capabilities and features that are present, which are specifically for applicable to enterprises. Whether it is the fact that we are able to bring in both services and the product together. So in that sense, it is not, hand it over to you and now it's your problem, but being with the client throughout their journey and helping them, we are kind of invested in their success. So a lot of these things are always called out, and it's what helps us be leaders all across. And that is kind of seen in some of these scales, right? So for example, the one large global telecommunication giant, we started with on this, I spoke of the attended automation, working with the agents. Started some years back with 250 bots, but very quickly we've scaled up to 49,000 attended bots. And, that shows you the magnitude of, the kind of work and orchestration that is taking place there across such a large number of agents. There is a health tech giant, global giant again, for which more than 600 attended bots are running. They have seen, literally savings in tens of millions of dollars over the last few years that we've been working with them. There are published case studies and economic impact analysis for this, so you can very well find it in the public domain. There's a financial services provider for which we have automated more than 230 critical processes for them. For a shipping company, for booking of cargoes, right? And it becomes, if you understand the shipping business, there are two kinds of shipping business, right? There is one which is related to the scheduled basis of container cargo, where the shipping company decides that this is my schedule, and the customers kind of book cargoes and ship it. And there is the other large business where the companies are vying for spot bookings of cargo, right? And that is also a significantly large proportion of the shipping business. And there, the ability to not only spot an opportunity to bid for a spot cargo, but also to make sure that you get the bid right. These two things are extremely important. And, AssistEdge is in use with one such giant where we are helping them, manage these things across 140 different countries, right? So there is a lot of, exchanges and platforms which are constantly being pulled, looking for opportunities. There's a lot of information being pulled to assess that what is the best rate to quote and so on. And, literally per quarter, the business that is done through this automation is in billions of dollars, right? A financial institution in the US for which 30 million transactions are processed every month. And this can go on, but very quickly, one more example is for a petrochemical company, one particular process involves close to 1,000 steps, right? 950 steps. So that's a lot of complex logic that is built into the process. So, what I'm trying to say is that different kinds of business challenges, as varied as they can get, at a very large scale, a large probably doesn't even begin to describe it. In each of these areas, Assist Edge has seen a lot of success. And, the case study that we spoke of today is one of the areas that we are doing at Infosys, but there are many such other large areas, and this itself, like Niranjan was mentioning, that we are already doing a significant proportion of the Infosys revenue is passing through this platform, and it's only the beginning, right? There is a lot more to come there as well. So with that said, I want to hand it over back to you if there are questions that you would like us to take.
Absolutely. Let's do that. And thank you, gentlemen, very much for that information. Always, very valuable to hear about a case study. First question: what does it take to achieve end-to-end process transformation? It's a big question. How would you answer it?
So, no, that's a big question. You're right, and it's a very important question as well. So I think a few things have to fall in place, right? First thing is the identification of the right processes. So you have to look at the amount of manual effort involved in the process, and you have to look at the user experience. Now, when I say user experience, it's, whichever is the user community, right? Whether it's the consumer of the process or it's the people who are executing the process, right? Both of these have to be looked at. And obviously you have to look at volume, because you don't want to spend a lot of time automating something that you're going to do a handful of times a year, right? Second thing is getting the process definition right. So before getting into the automation, look at the existing design of the process and reevaluate it, maybe redesign it. Processes often continue the way they are for a long time because they were designed and written with some context and circumstances in mind long back. And often you find that the business context has changed and those things are no longer relevant. So getting the process definition right, and for example, when I was speaking of Discover, that becomes important. Choosing the right technology intervention, right? Now, bear in mind the question is about process transformation, and that's why I'm saying that, well, technology is important for process transformation. Is it automation that is required? Or do we need to go all the way towards AI? Or is it just a matter of getting two systems to talk to each other, good old-fashioned integration, system integration? So making sure that the right technology intervention is brought in. It's not always only about automation. And I would say having the right organizational alignment, right? The team involved has to be a good mix of business and technology. The right success metrics have to be identified and known so that everybody is working towards the right goal. Sponsorship from the executive level, sponsorship funding, right, and alignment to the organizational goals and so on. So I think these are the, if all of this comes together, that's when an organization can achieve end-to-end process transformation.
You just mentioned the word process a number of times. What about the processes themselves? What processes are best or most viable for process transformation, in your opinion?
I think the short answer is all.
Yeah.
But frankly, the longer, probably more qualified answer is that, you have to get the prioritization right. Right? So like I was saying earlier, looking at the design and the stakeholders and so on. But first of all, look at I would say, processes that are critical to the organization's value chain, right? So for example, something that has a direct impact on the customers, the employees, the suppliers, the partners, and so on. So if in any process, you can transform it, whether you change the process or you change the technology. But if you can bring in any form of efficiency or experience improvement, almost always that leads to a positive business outcome, right? Looking at, and if you bring a positive business outcome in a process that is critical to the organization's value chain, it helps overall. So looking at those. Second, obviously, if you're looking at bringing in technological intervention, then you have to look at which are the processes which have high manual content and ways in which that can be reduced. So can you free up people's time to do what they should be doing? The case study that Niranjan spoke of today is a classic example of that. Project managers and delivery managers should be close to the customer, focusing on the customer's problems, solving those, and making sure delivery commitments are met and so on. Take away the manual effort that they're doing in billing and so on.
You've been talking about the entire enterprise. Did I interrupt you?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I just needed a sip of water. I think lastly, a point that I made earlier also, look for the right technology intervention, right? Is it automation? Is it just system integration? What is it? But I think these are this is the way in which you prioritize. While ideally you want to get all processes transformed, but this is what you would look at and how do you prioritize that.
Okay. As far as the enterprise, what are some critical? Well, I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. What are some critical prerequisites for enterprises to conduct process transformation?
Yeah, before I answer that, I think Niranjan had a point on the previous.
Oh, is that what the? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So let me add to what Prashant was saying, and I go back to the case study, right? So when we looked at, so we did this exercise about a year and a half back, when we were looking to make our project managers come closer to the customer, right? So one of the key items was obviously how do you reduce the operational overheads, so to say, right? And we actually pulled in a group of project managers, delivery managers. We ran design thinking workshops, and we collected a lot of data, and we had stakeholders from our information services, the people who maintain the applications. We had people from finance, we had people from the support teams in a room, and we brainstormed on all the key processes that on a day-to-day basis a project manager is involved with, right? And based on all of that, we kind of came up with a list of processes that one has maximum volumes, like Prashant said. The return on investment is good because you are going to invest a lot of time and money in creating these bots and any technology intervention for that matter. And at the end of it, it has to result in a positive business outcome. So we did all of that analysis before we actually jumped into doing this. And like Prashant said, we had the support from the senior management, right? We had the governance mechanisms to make sure that we have the buy-in for this concept across the various business units. We had a very close tracking on a weekly basis to ensure that the adoption increases, because you spent time and money to build those bots. You better make sure that the rollout happens seamlessly with support from senior management, and the adoption, because the return on investment is going to come only if the adoption actually scales up pretty fast. If you're going to take another year, 2 years to scale it up, then it's a lost opportunity. So that I think kind of is what we did to make sure that this implementation was seamless.
Fantastic. Obviously, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, folks are aware of Infosys as an organization. For anyone else, Prashant, I'd asked what are some critical prerequisites for enterprises to conduct process transformation. How would you answer that?
So I think a few things have to fall in place, right? I think the things that we already discussed so far about the prioritization, the process selection, etc. But more than that, I think first and foremost is the organization should genuinely have a will to transform, right? It has to be an organizational will driven right at the top. And it has to be a will for transformation, which is very distinct from, a patchwork or a band-aid. It's not about let's tweak it here and there, and let's just take this small portion and put an automation there and so on. Process transformation, where automation is a part of it. There has to be a genuine willingness to do that. Secondly, and linked to the first one is executive sponsorship, right? The senior management needs to do more than pay lip service to it, right? So an executive sponsorship comes in many ways. It's about ensuring that they speak and demonstrate their commitment to it. It's about ensuring that people who are driving a transformation are empowered. There is governance at the senior level. They hold people accountable. They hold themselves accountable, right? So executive sponsorship needs several things to fall into place, and that needs to be done. Thirdly, the transformation program has to be aligned with the overall organizational strategy, right? And this sounds like a no-brainer, right? But it's something that organizations get wrong. You need to make sure that you look ahead. What as an organization, what are you planning to do 3 years, 5 years from now, and make sure that the organizational transformation program is aligned to that. And fourth, obviously, is for all of this to fall into place, the funding has to be there, right? Sure, there have to be success measures, and there has to be accountability. But funding is the most important thing. I mean, how often have we come across programs that start off, but they have extremely limited funds, and beyond the first proof of concept of pilot, they're not able to scale up because really the willingness is not there, which leads to lack of sponsorship, which leads to lack of funding, and so on, right? I think these are some of the 4 things, critical prerequisites that need to fall in place.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We'll go do this as the last question. It's a big question, a couple parts. What are some attributes that enterprises should measure while transforming processes, or how can processes transform directly and align with company-wide level objectives?
So let me bring a transformation here, right? Let me give you a short answer to your big question. So really there are 2 parts, right? The first part is about the selection and prioritization of the processes. And the second part is about how do you measure success, right? So the selection and prioritization, what do you want to take up? And what are the metrics that you want to measure, right? So metrics can include, like we spoken of earlier, it's about identifying the percentage of manual effort, or it could be, coming up with some form of index that combines ease of automation with impact on business. Some, different organizations have different ways of measuring ROI and cost benefit transformation. Sometimes it is in hard dollars savings. Sometimes it is in revenue uplift. Sometimes it is in, customer satisfaction related metrics and so on. And that leads to, that's a good segue into the second part, which is what is success, right? So did the program deliver what it was promised to, right? And that, this kind of dovetail into each other. That what did you set out to do? Was it a dollar savings? Was it revenue uplift? Was it net promoter score? Was it customer effort score, which is increasingly replacing net promoter score? What was it that you were trying to measure? And therefore, what were you trying to achieve? For that, what would you measure? And have you achieved that, right? So in the case study that we spoke of, freeing up project managers' time to focus on doing what they are supposed to do, right? And here, very clearly, the metric was the amount of time that, and Niranjan spoke about this, that 20,000 to 40,000 project managers, the amount of sheer man-hours that are going into the confirmation of activities. And those, when you consider that so many of those hours could have been spent solving the problems of the client, right? That's the metric that we have to look at. Now, while 99.5% accuracy is important, the fact that $1 billion per quarter is passing through it is important. These are all important metrics in terms of demonstrating the scale at which this is happening. The most important thing is, what did we set out to achieve, and have we achieved that, right? And that was measured by how much time is freed up. So I think that's the most important thing, that you need to have an awareness of what is it that you're trying to achieve, align the metrics accordingly, measure them, and keep fine-tuning and correcting your progress as you move forward.
Fantastic. That is very well said. Neer and John, very much appreciate your time. Prashant, very much appreciate your time. Really, there's a ton of information here, so this will be available on demand as well. So folks will be able to see this very shortly. We always appreciate an EdgeVerve webinar, and even better when Infosys is involved. So, gentlemen, thank you very much, and we will see you down the line.
Sure. Thank you, Seth, and thank you everyone once again for joining us.
Thank you, Seth, and thanks everybody.